Good evening. Welcome to the December 17th meeting of the Yakima School Board. A few business items to take care of first. We do offer Spanish interpretation services from Jorge with Language Connection. If you need translation assistance in person, please check with Jorge for a device. And Jorge will translate this information for us.
Para aquellos que necesiten de la asistencia de un intérprete, tenemos el sistema y estoy aquí disponible para hacerlo. Gracias.
Thank you. We also provide live streaming for this meeting. The link can be found on our webpage under Board of Directors or by going directly to www.ysd7.org/board-meetings. If you wish to make a public comment this evening, there are two options available for you. The first option is for commenting on agenda items only, and the second option, which comes toward the end of the meeting, is for all other topics. In order to speak tonight, you will need to sign two forms, a sign-in form and the guidelines form, and those are available on the table in the back. If you are interested in watching past meetings, you can find them on our web page's YSD YouTube channel. And Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett,
Here.
Director Navarro Jr.,
Here.
Director Rice,
Here.
Vice President Villanueva is absent, and President Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag. And December's character word is altruistic, demonstrating a selfless concern for the well-being of others. O en español, altruista, demostrando preocupación desinteresada por el bienestar de los demás.
Today, the schools of the Yakima School District rest on the ancestral lands of the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation.
Hoy las escuelas del Distrito Escolar de Yakima descansan en las tierras ancestrales de las 14 tribus y bandas confederadas de la nación Yakima.
The people of the Yakima Nation inhabited more than 12 million acres.
La gente de la nación Yakima habitó más de 10 billones de acres.
Across Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Franklin, Grant, Kittitas, Klickitat, and Yakima counties.
En los condados de Adams, Benton, Chelan, Douglas, Grant, Franklin, Kittitas, Klickitat, y Yakima.
Today we honor those native peoples who are tied to the land through history, legends, and culture.
Hoy honramos a estos pueblos originales que están vinculados en la tierra a través de historias, leyendas y culturas.
We acknowledge the descendants who live in the world today.
Reconocemos a sus descendientes que viven en el mundo de hoy.
We thank the caretakers of this land who have lived here and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Agradezcamos a los guardianes de la tierra, quienes han vivido aquí y continúan viviendo aquí, desde tiempos inmemoriales.
An acknowledgement is a simple, powerful way to show respect.
Un reconocimiento es una manera simple y poderosa de mostrar respeto.
And a step toward correcting the stories and practices that erase indigenous peoples' history and culture.
Y un paso hacia la corrección de las historias y prácticas que borran la historia y la cultura de los pueblos indígenas.
It also honors the truth.
También honra la verdad.
As a school district, we will continue to build upon our relations with the Yakima Nation.
Como distrito escolar, continuaremos fortaleciendo nuestras relaciones con la nación Yakima.
Thank you. Thank you to our students. This evening, we're glad to provide a couple of special recognitions, and the first will be for some of our fall sports athletes. If you are here, When your name is read, would you please come up and circle around the loop here, and we'll shake your hand, and then you can take a picture over in front of the board. Director Beckett will honor those students today.
Thank you, Norm. We have a few students to pay a special tribute to tonight. From the 2024 Girls State Meet 4A Swim and Dive Championships, we'd like to recognize Adelaide Loser from Eisenhower High School, who placed 8th in the women's 200-yard. Is Adelaide here this evening? We have 4 others. The Big Nine announces the fall NECA and IBEW award winners. The National Electrical Contractors Association and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers are 2 organizations training electricians for the future. Both organizations encourage all high school students to explore with their high school counselors a career in the electrical construction industry, which provides salary levels that are above average and careers that last a lifetime. The following Yakima School District students were recognized for demonstrating superior balance in academics, athletics, and community involvement. They are Kaisley Wilsley, who plays volleyball at Davis High School. Miguel Galvez, who plays football at Davis High School. Emma Stevens, swimming at Eisenhower High School. And Caden Sund, who plays football at Eisenhower High School. Again, congratulations to all, but especially to Emma and to Caden. Thank you so much.
To take a picture in front of the board here. I think Barb went to get the camera. Next up, the Board of Directors would like to congratulate Haley Mespley at Robertson Elementary for being named the 2024 School Psychologist of the Year by the Washington State Association of School Psychologists. This award recognizes school psychologists who demonstrate excellence across a broad range of domains with effective interpersonal skills and a dedication to improving conditions for children, families, schools, and communities. Haley earned this prestigious award for her exceptional leadership and dedication to students, staff, and families. As head of one of the district's strongest special education teams, she also plays a key role in supporting students who need early intervention and Tier 2 services. Her leadership has brought program for English language learners, comprehensive development programs, and introduces calming corners into classrooms. Known for her positive energy, She regularly provides development on best practices for serving students with special needs, using evidence-based, culturally responsive evaluations to support all our students. Congratulations to Haley Meskley. You need to get a picture. Congratulations again. Next up, the next order of business will be to nominate and elect the slate of officers for the board for the coming calendar year. So first up would be the office of board president. Do I hear any nominations?
Norm,
Yes, Martha.
I'd like to nominate Ryan Beckett.
Thank you. Ryan, would you accept the nomination? Okay. Do we have any other nominations for board president? Hearing none, we'll take a... Oh, that's right. I have to ask twice, don't I? Is there a... Oh, there's a second? Oh, okay. We need to have a second on the nomination.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate and elect Ryan Beckett as an upcoming president of the board. Now we'll take the roll call.
Director Beckett.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Navarro Jr.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion
Congratulations.
passes 4-0.
Next up, we have the office of board vice president. Do I
No.
hear nominations from the floor?
I'd like to nominate Graciela Villanueva.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate Graciela. My understanding is under procedure, we can't vote because she's not here to accept or deny the nomination. So we'll have to hold on that till the next meeting.
I think you can go ahead and vote. If she wishes to decline, then you can revisit the issue, but
Okay.
you can take the vote now.
Well, we'll go ahead and vote then. It's been moved and seconded. Barb, would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett.
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Next up, we have Office of WIAA Representative. Do I hear any nominations? Hearing none? I guess we'll table that for now. I think Ryan is currently our WIAA rep. Okay. So we'll address that at a future meeting. We'll do some arm twisting in between. Office of Legislative Rep. Do I hear nomination?
I nominate Martha Rice.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to nominate Martha Rice as our legislative representative. Or would you call the roll, please?
Director Beckett.
Aye.
Director Navarro Jr.
Aye.
Director Rice.
Aye.
President Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And just as an announcement for clarity, it's not a position that's up for nomination from our board, but I am still serving on the SDA board for resolutions committee. So that's an Area 8 position. Okay. Having dispensed with that, congratulations to all our new and returning representatives. We now would like to welcome to the podium Ms. Frances Guerrero, YEA President.
Thank you for bearing with us. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Congratulations, everyone, on your new positions. And thank you for bearing the elements to be here tonight. I appreciate that. I really want to thank all of you for following up last week at the last board meeting, following up on my report. As a result of that, the superintendent educated me on some protocols that are going to open up avenues where I can meet with more administrators and possibly actually enact some relief for some of those elementaries, I'm hoping. So I will be making lots of phone calls after break, and I will report back to you on how that goes. I find protocols and procedures and that kind of stuff really important, like people knowing what to do and how to do it and all that stuff. I didn't know because I'm new to this position and nobody told me. So I like to have things in place, as I'm sure you've noticed. I really want to thank HR and TNL for putting together protocols for sub-absences with custodians, paras, and librarians. My understanding is that that document has gone out to administrators and they are in the process of disseminating it across the district. I know some buildings already have. I would like to have another kind of ask when it comes to putting protocols in place. And I'm not really sure who would be in charge of this, whether it would be TNL, HR, or SES. But it is something that has come to light. And aside from putting that protocol in place, I also want to make you aware of the situation that necessitated it. So we have a lot of students that are high needs behavior students, and some of them are runners. If you are familiar with SPED, they call them elopers. They elope, they escape. And I think our members really need protocols for how to deal with those students. Like, am I allowed to tackle him before he leaves the building? Do I have to wait until he's outside before I tackle him? How about once he crosses the street, can I tackle him? Like, at what point can I do what? Do I just need to wait until someone from downtown comes? Like, what's the protocol? And this is not something that, can you talk to those individual buildings? It needs to be consistent and district-wide. So I just want to put that on your radar that, again, when it comes to supervision, we have students like that, that when they become dysregulated, they need extra supervision. And so it might help if we had protocols in place to be ready to address those runners. It's very stressful for my members not knowing what they can and cannot do in response to that. I also would like to ask that we come up with better systems, not that we don't already have systems in place, but better systems for dealing with tragedies. So I'm sure you're aware that in the last month or so, we've had 2 tragedies in the district, one at high school level and one at a middle school level. And I think that, let's forget to take this off. I think that at the high school level, our teachers and our students fare better because they are older, more mature, more equipped. And in terms of the teachers, they've just endured more, and so they can handle it a little bit better. When you bring in outside counselors to a high school, those students recognize this person has a function. Their job is to help me with coping strategies. My job is to spill my guts to them, whether or not I know them, and they're going to provide that help. At the middle school level and the elementary level, it doesn't work that way. You can bring in outside counselors, and they are not going to be utilized as well because those kids are not going to spill their guts to people they don't know. They're going to spill their guts to people that they have relationships with. So ideally, right, we just have those counselors fully staffed. barring that, if that's not a possibility, then we need to look at other things that we can do to help those kids, whether it be having more staff that are already there crisis trained. Maybe we bring up counselors from the elementary that they know, although that's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that would end up causing problems at the elementary level. But I'm just telling you, those tragedies at elementary and middle school levels have a much harsher effect than they do at the high school level. Our middle school, those students and those staff are suffering. And if you are not aware, those kinds of tragedies have a trigger effect, a ripple, a domino effect. And so at that middle school, we had 6 students identified for DCR, 3 that have actually been admitted to facilities to get more intensive help. We have staff there that have experienced similar traumas in their past, and so that's a trigger for them. So it's not just our students that need more help, it's our staff too. When I checked in at the high school level, they're not okay, but they're gonna be all right, right? But it would be better if someone was checking in on them, not just the teachers that have students now, that student now, but their past teachers. Because you tend to, especially at the high school level, keep a lot of those relationships long after those students are gone. And so we still need to check in on the mental health of those teachers. And when you're in a situation like we are now, where everything is strained, it's all the more important, it's all the more critical that we have better systems in place. So the administrator, when I talked to the administrator at the middle school to verify those facts, he was very pleased with the response that YSD did provide, but he also acknowledged clearly he needs more resources. Our middle schools need more resources. They need more counselors. Our students, we just have high need students when it comes to mental health overall. Kind of related to that, not necessarily something that I've heard in our buildings, just something that's been in the news lately. If you've been paying attention, especially to Seattle, Renton, they just busted a bunch of people in a sex trafficking ring. We used to have training pre-COVID. It's a thing here in the Valley. It's a bad, unusually high thing here in the Valley, so much so that we started getting training as staff that was meant to accumulate over years. Like, we didn't get it all in one year. It was, we start off with this information this year, the following we had a little bit more. And I think COVID hit, something happened and it stopped. We need to try and restart that. It is an issue for our students and they need to be protected. And we need to know how to protect them. We need to know how to identify what signs to look for and what we can do to help them. I think our teachers suspect they know a lot of victims, but they don't know what to do to help them. I would like to note that we have really good emergency plans, like the protocol for it, the template, the document, I believe exists. I think it's something that the Safety and Security Department put together 3 or 4 years ago. I'm so sorry that I didn't think to attach it to my email so that it could go in the board docs so that I could show you, but I can forward it to you later. Washington Middle School, especially, I know that I have seen this document from them for the past couple of years. And I asked one of the teachers to send it to me again to see if it was updated, and it was. There's a fabulous explanation of every kind of crisis possible and how it's handled. It identifies who the members of the emergency team are. So for example, with Washington Middle School, I know one of the members is an emergency EMT on the side. And so, like, great person, right, to have in that position. That's actually who I called. I said, are you actually doing what this document says, that you will meet quarterly? And he told me last year they actually met, I think, monthly. They have not met as regularly this year, but he's going to get on top of that and get that going again. But the document, I don't think is widely disseminated. Like, I don't know that every building uses it. I contacted Ike to see if they had it, and the VP in charge of it over there sent it to me. So it exists, but I never saw it while I was there. So I don't know if maybe they rolled it out for the first time this year, but those kinds of documents needs to be a priority, to send that out and to make sure that teachers have that information. I mean, it has everything in it, what you do in a triage situation, where the reunification site is, if there's any kind of need to evacuate a building. It has a lot of important information, but if teachers don't know it exists, then it's not useful. And it's very user-friendly. It's just a great document that I'd like to make sure gets disseminated more widely. And the last thing I would like to bring to your attention is that in terms of resources and making sure that everyone knows what resources are available, I would really like student services to be more public about what they have available, what they can offer. Our students, again, probably especially more at the high school level, they tend to stay in touch with us. And maybe it's just because I'm an English teacher, but I have a lot of students that continue to keep in contact with me from college. Hey, can you look over this essay for scholarships, for graduate school, whatever. I had one student who graduated probably 7 years ago. It's 25 now. He comes from a family, a non-traditional family. Biological parents were not the guardians, and the primary guardians were taking care of many kids, like he, his siblings, and maybe some cousins. And one of the primary guardians passed away recently. He lives over 3 hours away, but he took 2 of his younger siblings to ease some of the burden on the primary guardian that's left. Something really bad happened to one of his siblings, who was a former YSD student as well. I didn't know how to help him. I didn't know what resources are available. So I called Omar. It's fabulous. He got on it right away. He said, let me talk to some people. Let me find out who I can reach out to that can help him in his space 3 hours away. He got me an agency. He got me a name. He got me an email and a number. And now I can help this former student help their sibling out of this really terrible situation. I obviously wouldn't have known that as a teacher. I didn't know it now. My mom's a case manager. She didn't know that. She's usually my source of information for things like that. That kind of stuff needs to go out to our staff, because it's not just our counselors that work with our students, it's our staff. So just the more protocols and procedures that we have in place so that people know where to find information, people know what to do when certain events happen, it just makes life easier for everyone. It's one less thing to stress about. And in our high needs population, it's important that as many people are trained and informed as possible. Questions?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Thank you for bringing these items that you have questions about to our attention this evening. And I'm wondering if any of the questions that you have brought to the board, you've had a chance to run them past for instance, the supervisor for the principals, or the supervisor for special services, or even the superintendent. If you had a chance to run your questions by those folks.
So one of the things that's kind of difficult about the way we operate in terms like labor management meetings, they're only once a month. So that meeting happens on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is when executive council, and the following Wednesday is rep council. So that's when I tend to hear a lot of these things. The situation at the middle school, I heard about last Tuesday on my way out of town, and I couldn't do anything about it that day. And quite frankly, I was stunned, absolutely stunned that many students would have been so deeply affected. I wanted to touch base with Stacy Locke first. So I reached out to Stacy on Wednesday, and I believe she was out of the office, not available. She got back to me Thursday and told me that she was going to walk straight over to Student Services and let them know. So, and then Stacy and I also had scheduled a meeting today, but then she was out sick, so I haven't been able to touch base with her again on that.
I guess the reason I ask is that sometimes if you go directly to the person who can answer those questions or implement some kind of action to meet your suggestions, those things can happen almost immediately. Whereas if you bring them to the board, then that delays the process because it has to go through the board's process, which is to recommend it to the superintendent, who then may have to recommend it down the line a little bit. So that may be something that you want to consider for future suggestions that might make sense in the immediate to bring to the board, but really have you be able to facilitate a much more rapid response to the suggestion by bringing it to the person who might be more responsible for that area.
And I don't always expect the board to be the ones that are taking immediate action. I just want to make sure that there is so much that comes to me, and I made you this promise last spring that I was going to keep you informed, that I wanted you to make sure that you knew what was happening in our buildings. So I don't necessarily expect you to do something except to support that something gets done.
Thank you, Franny.
Thank you. I want to thank Director Rice and just clarify a little bit here, because I'm quite sure that the message is that the board does want to hear. It's not that the board does not want to hear. It's just that we want to make sure that we're resolving the situations. And I really appreciate, we did have a meeting yesterday, and we had, I had a meeting with Francis Guerrero. We were able to assign about 3 different items that will be addressed that were brought to me. Unfortunately, the 5 items that were listed here were not discussed yesterday when we met. It doesn't mean that they won't be addressed now. It just means that I could have taken some time, and we'll get there to that point. And I really appreciate that we're developing a relationship where we can kind of address items at the least, at the lowest level possible. So Franny is free to do the higher, heavier lifting as the president of YEA, and that we're making sure that we're making progress. So the 5 items that I noted here were the runners in special education services. That's something that's very easy to resolve when you're talking about protocols. We have Casey Mitchell, we have Kevin Brennan, who will be able to address that. And I think it's first important to kind of hold tight to Covey's 5th rule, which is seek to understand, then to be understood. So it's important to seek to understand what is happening within the different buildings if there is a protocol in place. So it may not appear at times, maybe in a building or to a member, that there's not a protocol. It could have been something as simple as maybe the individual being absent on the day that the protocol was shared. I'm not saying that's always the case, but we need to figure out what the issue was. So we can find out about the runners. You mentioned, Franny, you talked about Omar being fabulous. Absolutely. Just does an incredible job. I would tell you that the tragedies that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I would stack our crisis response team against any team out there. So they are the protocols that are in place and the work that they do on the weekends. I'm talking hours upon hours upon hours to make sure that we have people in place to serve, and making sure that we have counselors in place is not as simple as we have to lead counselors in some of the buildings, obviously, but we do have counselors that then respond to the building in crisis. So that's another opportunity. The trafficking situation, when you're talking about human trafficking, we have a renowned specialist coming to town that we're hosting on March 17th in the Davis Auditorium, Russ Tuttle, which is a stop trafficking project. We'll make sure that that is available to all of our staff members. It's open to the public. It's really an adult event because we are in an area that's a high highly engaged in human trafficking. We talked about the dissemination of the document with the example of Washington Middle School in crisis. I'll have Sarah Cordova reach out to make sure that she's addressing that through safety and security. And if that needs to be updated or if it needs to be redistributed, we can make sure that that happens. And I think that was pretty. Oh, I just did also want to mention that Student Services, Omar, can also follow up around what's available for those student services for people who are in crisis. And I just want to compliment our Student Voice Council because they recognized the importance of mental health over a year ago. And that really speaks to the empowerment that the board has given to our students. And they organized a mental health week because that is something that was really on the foremost of their minds. And we've now had 2 years of that mental health week. I know that's not a be all end all, but I think it also speaks to the importance of mental health, of which I would also add, just as a obvious plug around the financial challenges with our state, that the mental health services are not funded to the degree that they certainly should be when they are being emphasized. So I do appreciate the opportunity to respond, and we'll make sure that these are all aligned. Oh, yes, thank you, Anthony. And Anthony's calling out that we still do have an employee assistance program. So that is free to all of our employees across the gamut. And I think it even includes 3 free counseling appointments that come with that. So there's significant opportunity then to address items in a safe environment, unless you have your own counselor that you would go to as an adult. But that is for our employees that are going through some tragic issues, which we recognize have happened most recently. So thank you for allowing me to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero, for bringing these issues to our attention this evening. At this point, we have a report on alternative learning experience programs and additional ALE courses, and that report is being delivered tonight by the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Jewel Brumley. Jewel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Beckett.
Yeah,
Dr. Green.
Yeah, and if I could, I just want to call out that one of our principals, Brenda Maloney, was supposed to be here this evening as well to present. Her father had a health issue and family issue, so we excused her from this meeting. And thank you, Jill, for picking up that end, and appreciate Natalie Riley being here representing Stanton and our online high school learners as well as Open Doors.
All right, so the first slide just is basically telling about some of the alternative learning programs we have in the district. And then, as Dr. Green said, Brenda Maloney is not here, but the next slide goes over, where do I put this? Okay, the next slide is about K-8 virtual and the homeschool partnership that we've formed. The homeschool partnership, I'm going to talk about that first. That started out a couple years ago, and we've only had 2 students in it. We are right now at currently 9 students in it. Brenda organized and led a team at the fair in September to help recruit homeschool students. This partnership with families for their homeschooling needs is one that's really growing in a lot of areas, and getting up to 9 students just since the fair, since the end of September, beginning of October, is a great thing. We also are building a curriculum library that they can come in and see the books and the manipulatives that they're going to use to homeschool their students. We get a full FTE. They get to select their curriculum. There's lots of guidance there. There's tutoring services they can bring it. They can come in and get in-person tutoring. Obviously, we have teachers to support that. They can participate in any of our YSD activities because they're YSD students. And we have, we're bringing in a counselor part-time to K-8 virtual and the homeschool partnership. that will be available to our homeschool students because they don't usually have a counselor available. The other thing that's really cool, we have a partnership now with Clayful, which is a life coaching support, and it's through a text messaging. It's very secure with students, families, staff, that a student can text in, and when you think about kids, what do they want to do? How do they talk to each other? By text. So Clayful, you text your coach and they give you coaching support, like, oh, how am I going to get all these things done? And they'll tell them, spread it out over time, whatever the coaching is. But it also has a safety net that if the student is texting something that could be harm to themselves or their family or a bad situation, they level it up to a professional counselor, and that levels up to alerting, whether it's YPD or fire and safety or whatever it needs to. They will level that up, and they have all these safeguards in place so that students can feel safe. We know they're being talked to about important decisions they're making in a safety environment, and it's all monitored, so there can't be any foul ups with something not appropriately being shared. But that's a really big thing, because when students, whether they're K-8 virtual or they're at homeschool, they're isolated from the rest of, they're not in a normal social setting. So having a life coach via text is really a great thing that we've added in this year for those students. So that works at homeschool partnership and K-8 virtual. We also have the counselor at both. We have a lot of students that come in a couple times a week. We have students that come in once a month for a lunch social where they can, build activities. They can do other things. They had a really cool Halloween social for K-8 and then or K-5 and then 6-8, where they were interacting with other students with homeschool or K-8 virtual. And the families get to come in and do that. It's not just a student comes. The whole family comes and interacts and, paints a pumpkin, does, whatever the activity is. So that's really cool. I can't say enough about how Brenda is building this program up. It's grown by 54 students just since the fall. The program success rate for first quarter in K-5, there's 75% of the students were successful in at least one area, if not all areas. And then 6-8, it was 62%. But when you look around at different virtual programs, that's a pretty high percentage because things happen. That's why they're being homeschooled. So they get to take it at their pace. We get to support them. I've heard nothing but positive comments from parents. And when I was at the Halloween event, they were all excited. This is just, you can see by the smiles on those pictures at the opening that they're happy to be there. So that's our K-8 virtual program and homeschooling. Natalie will talk about our 9-12 program.
Again, I'm Natalie Riley, so I'm the principal of Stanton, Yakima Online, and Open Doors. So this year, all those programs were joined together under one roof. And so it's been a really collaborative partnership between all of the programming. So I have 9 through 12 students in my building, and it's an opportunity where we're offering a space for students that they may not have had when they had Yakima Online and Open Doors in a different space. And so our programs are all interacting together. So Stanton is obviously smaller classroom sizes, more instructional one-to-one instruction, opportunities to get to know our students. We have a smaller amount of students in that space, but it allows for us to know all of our students, their stories, their situations. We know who they are, what they're about, and how to support them. And so that's the benefit of Stanton. We also have a high number of CTE classes specifically in Stanton, which has actually also benefited Yakima Online and our Open Doors Diploma program because they can access those classes in person if need be. So we do have some students that we've split between Yakima Online and Stanton where they're taking their CTE classes there, or they just need, I want to be in person for one class. I'm struggling with this academic area, so I need to be able to go to Stanton versus fully online. And so we're transitioning a lot of students that way and supporting them to meet that pathway, which is that graduation requirement. Stanton is a trimester schedule. So right now we're the only school that's on trimester schedules, and we have 5-period days. So we have less classes, but we have more opportunities for credits because we have that trimester schedule. And so by the end of their 4 years at Stanton, they can earn up to 34 credits. So it's an opportunity for students because oftentimes we see students that pick an alternative route, maybe struggled in a more traditional comprehensive space, and having the opportunity to come to Stanton, to be able to come to Yakima Online, to be able to try something more alternative, to give them an opportunity to try a new experience has had success. And then having that built-in extra credit opportunity as well has been extremely successful for our students to be able to have the opportunity to try new classes, get more hands-on opportunities, and also gain some of those credits back that they may have lost at the traditional schools for one reason or another. They have life experiences, situations have brought them to us. And so we have that opportunity. We are also partnering with Stanton, and they're looking at expansion across to the other 2 programs as well, because it's one big community there with all of the programs. We work with Technical Access Foundation, so TAF, it's out of Seattle, and it is specifically looking at project-based learning. So we're focusing on moving our students towards project-based learning because we've seen success when students use their hands and build projects and have creative conversations across curricular. They learn and gain and are accessed and engaged more. Again, time and time I've heard students say, well, I had this project due, so I had to make sure I was here. And so we've seen an increase of attendance rate. We've seen an increase of engagement from our students, just having some of those opportunities because I have a partner that depends on me to get my job done. And that's been a huge increase for our students. So that's definitely where we're heading as a school. So we hope to be in the next 5 years fully project-based and really focusing on that being our huge priority at Stanton, which then really truly helps engage all of the programs that we have because we are sharing students between all of the programs. Yakima Online is a comprehensive online curriculum, and it's an opportunity for kids to work flexibly from home. They are taking 3 classes, and it is on a quarter system this year, so that is a little bit of a shift for everybody. But we have engaged, embraced, and kind of changed our processes and how we do things through Yakima Online and have seen success with our students and engaging. We've also had a lot more students coming in because now they have access to a nurse, they have access to food. So they have breakfast and lunch. They have opportunities to work with our social emotional specialists. They have opportunities to work with our counselor. So they're getting an opportunity to have more touch points with people that maybe they didn't have before. I mean, the amount of students that come in at lunchtime is pretty astronomical because they come and they eat and then they go study, or they come and they have breakfast and they go to their classes. And so we find oftentimes students are strategically deciding when they come in to access those meals so that they can go to work and get that done. So we've seen a huge increase of students actually coming in, as well as we realize like the engagement. If they're not engaging in a program, we have options and opportunities to put them somewhere with their communicating with them and having that conversation to put them in a space that's really beneficial. So we've definitely been using all of the entities. And then we do have Open Doors as well, which is the GED program. The other thing to know about that, there is an Open Doors diploma. So some of our students come to the GED program and say, wait a minute, I'm close enough that I can earn those high school credits. And so they do earn a diploma as well. So it's an option for students to take the GED assessment, which is 4 assessment areas. And then also some of them are working on the diploma as well. So we do have a testing site on campus. So all of our students have access to take their GED test on campus, and that's no cost to the students. So we're providing opportunities to help build up their skills, provide them with opportunities, and really truly giving them something when they leave our campus. Maybe. Thank you. So when we look at our success rates for Stanton, so we have 72% of our students were successful at Stanton, and that's a variety of classes and a variety of opportunity for our students. A lot of our what we work on is building academic grit and the ability to stay engaged, stay continuing to push through, and continue to experience success. With Yakima Online, our first quarter success rate was 63%, which is roughly around the same when you're looking at online programs, because oftentimes students are at home, and that's when we have those conversations to say, maybe it's time to come in to Stanton for a little while and be more engaged and access your stuff a little bit more thoroughly with the support of us. And then open doors. So this year we've awarded 105 credits, as well as 92 tests have been, or excuse me, 92 tests have been passed. And then we've had 4 completed GEDs, and we had 1 as of yesterday. So students are working and truly engaged in getting that support.
May I ask a question? What do you mean when you say, what's a success rate mean? What does that number mean?
So the passing of their classes.
Oh, they're passing 72% of their classes. Or
Overall, the
64.
students are, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what that means. Thank you.
So the last slide here is the program enrollment trends. We've talked a lot about enrollment at board meetings this year. K-8 looks like it's down from the last year, but those students are fully engaged, and it keeps growing basically every week they add to it. Our homeschool, you'll see it's at 9 now, and it was at 2 the previous 2 years. So the 3-year enrollment trend, and the reason I used a 3-year enrollment trend was K-8 has only been in existence for 3 years, so I couldn't go back further. Stanton, YOL, Open Doors, and Satellite, those numbers are volatile based on students' lives, basically, right? So, but the thing is, those numbers, the 355, I think Natalie will tell you, all of those students are engaged. Like, that's a real number. That's not just they're enrolled and not doing anything. So they've increased that engagement, even if they're down from 2022 to 2023, which was probably elevated because of COVID. And since we've gotten away from COVID, then more students are going back in person instead of online. So those numbers up there are very real. Those students are fully engaged. Any other questions for either of us?
Any questions from the board? I'm watching the screen to see if Director Rice pops up. I do have one question, I guess. Natalie, you mentioned Yakima Online students being able to come in and have lunch and studying afterwards. So in that facility, is the commons area a flexible space where those students are able to study, or how do they physically spread out?
Yeah, so we have so the Yakima Online space is, I would invite any of you that want to come through and see it now, because it's all smashed together. We would love to have you come in and kind of see what we're doing. But so Yakima Online has their own space. So everybody for Yakima Online is in that space. And in the middle of that space, we've created a work area where all students can access that work. We also have a rotation schedule where if they need a quieter space, we have additional classrooms that we rotate people in to support and students in. So we base it on what the student needs, because sometimes it can be a little noisy in the Yakima Online space. So we do have opportunities for them to go to a classroom and get some of that one-to-one engagement with a teacher or additional people. So.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll say thank you to both of you very much for the report. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the annual school improvement plan report. To report tonight is Dr. Maria Lucero, the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning.
Good evening, Board President Beckett, Superintendent Green, and members of the board. So this evening, I'm going to present on the school improvement plans, and you have the full slide deck. I'm just going to highlight 5 slides for you this evening. The school improvement plans are actually required for every school in Washington State and must be approved by the School Board of Directors annually. The school improvement plan is the guiding document that drives the improvement process at each school. In the Yakima School District, every school completes a comprehensive needs assessment that leads up to the creation of their school improvement plan. And these plans are not static. They are intended to be actionable and regularly updated through the progress monitoring of those goals. That is typically done through the instructional leadership team. Essential components of a school improvement plan are priority goals that are actionable and measurable, high leverage, evidence-based activities most likely to achieve those priority goals, multiple data measures that will be utilized to routinely check progress on the effectiveness or impact of an activity in order to determine if it should be retained, revised, or abandoned. And this is done over the course of the entire school year. So that you're aware of the identification of our schools, this is the tiered model. Starting down at the bottom are our schools that are foundational eligible or foundational schools. So they're not identified for tiered supports. And really their support comes internally through the executive directors who meet with them on a regular basis, still following up with the work of their school improvement plan, the work of their instructional leadership team, and professional learning teams. We have schools that are identified for Tier 1 supports, and so these schools are identified for growth in 1 to 2 targeted areas. For example, it might be our English learners or students with disabilities. Our schools identified for Tier 2 supports are schools identified as targeted in 3 or more areas or targeted for English language progress. And so this would be our multilingual learners who take the annual English language proficiency test. Schools identified for Tier 3 supports are schools who are Tier 3 comprehensive, identified for graduation rate, and then schools at the Tier 3 plus supports identified for comprehensive or graduation rate, or 2 or more consecutive identification cycles. It's important to note that we are back on track with our 3-year cycle. So there was an interruption to the cycle with COVID as was presented in last year's presentation. So here are our schools that are eligible for school improvement funds. Grant applications were due October 31st, and due to the increased number of schools in improvement across the state, there are no district funds available. There are funds available for individual schools that range anywhere from $27,000 to $55,000. So these are elementary schools. Here are our secondary schools. Here are our foundational schools. As I mentioned before, they're not identified in receiving tiered supports. We have Barge Lincoln, Nob Hill, Roosevelt, Franklin, Wilson, Davis, and Eisenhower. So doing absolutely amazing work. They do continue, like I mentioned before, to have a school improvement plan. There's always room for growth and continuing to internally analyze data. They also set those goals and monitor them through the instructional leadership team and professional learning teams. As requested in the past, the Yakima School District school improvement goals by focus. So you can see the number of schools, for example, for language arts and how many have goals in that area. I do want to highlight that although it shows here that the number of schools is 1 for professional learning communities, across the board, there is professional learning community work that is called out in the goals as a means for fulfilling that goal. This particular school, Garfield, wanted to engage in a self-assessment and wanted to really target growth as professional learning teams in certain areas after conducting that self-assessment. And you do have a summary that is accessible through a link of all YSD school improvement goals. Questions?
Any questions from the board?
Brian?
Yes, Director Rice.
I want to thank Maria for this presentation. I know it's something that has to be done every year, but I appreciate the fact that she's identified those schools that are in particular areas of that have particular areas of focus. And my question is, Maria, you identified the number of 27,000 to 55,000. That amount of money is for the whole school, right? It's not per grade level or anything like that. It's just that it's a lump sum that goes to the school for the purpose of school improvement.
That is correct, to target their specific school improvement plan goals. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Lucero, only question I had, when we got our preview in board docs for the agenda and we see the reports that come through, I click through, and of course there's a lot to this report. It was somewhat overwhelming to start clicking through. But it was also really interesting just to be able to see how the different building leadership teams filled out those reports. I thought it was very interesting to take a look at those. I didn't go through every single one, but I went through a lot of them.
Mhm.
In section 2, where it identifies the school leadership team, it also indicates an interest or identification for parent and community partnerships. And I only saw a couple of schools where they actually listed those. And I'm wondering, how closely is OSBI looking at that versus how involved is that? I know, because I know those partnerships exist. I know those are in place all around us.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if those are not being identified for a reason.
They may not be called out specifically in their school improvement plan, but there is a family engagement plan at every one of our schools. And so, for example, we might have a literacy night, and a literacy night would align specifically for supporting parents and informing them of a school improvement plan and their efforts so that they can also partner with the school and support at home. Yes. And those plans are reviewed by an outside entity, and they do receive reports. Each principal, as do the principal supervisors, receive a copy of that review. And then when we meet with them one-on-one, we do discuss the feedback that they've received.
Excellent, thank you. Like I say, I know those programs are ongoing. I was just curious about that. Anything else from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report. That moves us to section D, and this is members of the board updates. Does any member of the board wish to report out this evening?
Just a couple of things. One, if you didn't get a chance to attend the Davis Auditorium celebration, it was a nice evening. It wasn't hugely attended, but there were a lot of things going on at Davis that evening. So, but it really was, got a lot of comments afterwards from people that hadn't had the opportunity to see it before, and it's certainly been an impressive thing that we finally have completed. It's going to be a real shining star for the school district and for the whole community, because it's the kind of a place that a lot of things can occur in there. So that's nice. The second one was we had the legislative breakfast this morning, and Director Beckett and Director Rice and Superintendent Green, we were all there, and it was very informative on just kind of what's going to be happening in the legislature and the needs of local schools. And I'd like to point out one thing that I just said, hooray, is that Senator King, like Martha and myself, is also very interested in a longer school year in order to better serve our students. We've talked on our board many times about how our academic progress seems to flatline. And I really think that we need to take a serious look and work with our community. They haven't liked the idea so far. But I think we need to take a serious look at extending our school year so that it serves the population of kids that we have. Summers are too long. We spend too much of the fall catching up from what they've forgotten from the last year. So just something to think about.
And I'll just add on to that. It was nice. The entire program was put on by ESD 105, so there were board members and superintendents from a variety of districts there presenting and sharing information, and Representative Chris Corey, Senator Torres, Senator King, and then Representative-elect Deborah Mangeras all attended. And I thought it was very interesting to hear their perspective on the upcoming legislative session as well. So that was an interesting event. Hearing nothing else from board members, I'll go to Dr. Green for the superintendent's update.
Thank you very much, President Beckett. I will forego my report out on the Davis Auditorium, but I will follow up by saying that the Yakima Herald did a wonderful story that came out later that week. So we were very pleased to be able to provide a private tour for the photographer as well as the reporter. And we want to thank the Herald for the way that they captured how important that new facility is, not only to Davis, but to the district. Regarding the legislative breakfast, it was wonderful to have one senator and 3 legislators there with Senator King and to spend that time together. And it was very well attended, as you know. And I just want to call out as well that in past years, it's been a long time since we've had that many legislators there in a room. So it was very well received, as you know. Other items to share, we had a student senate meeting on December 11th. So over the last several years, we've evolved the Superintendent Student Advisory Council to become the Student Voice Council. And it is continually in evolution to become systemic and a part of our district. And we are now switching to what is called a Student Senate and building capacity within that structure. So I will be happy to report out more at a later date, but we had 12 students representing the secondary level from 9 through 12. So we focused on the high school here this first year with the Senate, with the opportunity to expand down to the middle school. And one other thing that's important to call out is that in the first year of our Student Voice policy that was approved earlier this year, it did call for a student voice structure for each of our schools by December. So our executive directors are finalizing that here in this last week to make sure that each of our buildings do have indeed a plan in place for student voice. So that's already having a great impact. And it's only too bad that we don't have the 2 driving forces in Ezra and Luana who helped realize that over several years. And they're also participating in the Student Senate. I should also call out that in speaking of our students and their success, both of those individuals, one at Davis, one at Eisenhower, now serve as the ASB president and senior class president, respectively. So it's nice to now have that connection at both of the schools, along with their formal structures there within those buildings, but then also providing feedback for us as an entire district. Regarding Rotary, a couple of weeks ago, we did have a wonderful speaker during November, Adam Beach, a well-known, renowned Native actor. And I think I shared out on that previously, but in Rotary, since our last meeting, I was invited to speak on that and what it meant to our students. We had a tremendous turnout from Lower Valley, as well as our students here at both Davis, Eisenhower, and I believe we had Stanton represented there as well. But it was very well received. I spoke to superintendents around the area. They were very happy to participate in the opportunity. And I think it's important to call out in this public setting, especially when we are going through, like most districts in the state, budgetary challenges, that somebody of Adam Beach's stature coming to the district and the amount of compensation that individual requires is only possible through partnerships. So President Beckett, you called out partnerships and the importance thereof. It was not the Yakima School District funding that entire opportunity. It was a collaboration with multiple districts across our area contributing from their Native American funding source that allowed that to happen. And it did get our name out there as one of the sponsors. And I think that might have caused some confusion with the community on how can we be sponsoring something, but it was in the organizational capacity, the partnership capacity. So that has really given me something to think about, because sometimes good deeds are not always interpreted in the way that they're meant. So I would certainly want to get that out here in this setting to let people know that we are being very judicious with the opportunities that we provide and the spending that goes into those items. The last 2 more items. One would be that our office professionals had a customer service training. It was a district-wide training. It has been some time since that has occurred. It was, we do need to refresh these opportunities every once in a while. We heard from our YEA president here talk about protocols, and sometimes no time lapses, and it's a time for a refresh. And that's what happened with our office professionals across the district. I want to commend Chris Miller, our director of our classified personnel and HR. I've had nothing but positive feedback from that bargaining unit and the work that he did in really emphasizing what we can do to make sure that we're serving our customers across the system, whether they're our students or our families, parents, communities, but how important that is. And I'm excited to see the changes and the implementation of what he put in place. Last item to share with you is about a month away. We have the Martin Luther King March. That is January 20th, 2025. So Martin Luther King March on that Monday. And one of those things, I don't know how it happens, but I was very honored to be selected as the keynote speaker at the convention center that day. So we will be marching as a district, and they must be out of speakers across the city and state to have me in that role, but certainly not going to turn down an opportunity that comes from our members of our community making that request. So I look forward to, once again, representing Yakima along with numerous administrators, teachers, students. Just been tremendously pleased with the continual emphasis of reaching out to the community that we see on days like that. And so we look forward to that January 20th opportunity. And with that, that concludes my report for today.
I have one addition.
Go ahead, please.
I left out an opportunity that I've had now twice to go to Wilson Middle School and work with students on developing their math goals. And I specifically requested that when I went back again, I met with the same 2 classrooms of students. So I worked with the same individual students. It's really remarkable to see their growth. It's really remarkable to see the number of kids that have really made a commitment to growth. I'm really encouraged by what our students and teachers are doing. And I anticipate that this process that they're doing is going to help raise their math scores significantly. It'll be interesting to see what happens by the end of the year. But great bunch of kids. Middle school is a special place. It's really fun.
Thank you, Director Walker, and thank you, Dr. Green, for the update. That takes us to our monthly financial update, and Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, President Beckett. Apologies, I've been feeling a bit under the weather, so I'll try to be brief. It's my kind of jacket and lack of professional attire this evening. Apologies. So before you this evening is the November financial report. First off, the highlights or lowlights. Cash flow is below projection. I want to tell you why. Cash right now is about $2.5 to $3 million below projection, in part mostly to the timing of the approval of the IDEA, the largest portion of our special education funding from the federal government. That was just approved the 13th or 14th this month. We just drew down about $1.5 million to $1.75 million. So that will help us as we move forward in the next month. But just so we identified why cash was low, of course, is the timing of some grant reimbursements. But just let you know why. There's the trend. You can see that we continue to decline in enrollment. If you look at the same period 5 years prior, we were at 15,568. We're at 15,070. So, and you can see on a month-to-month, generally we peak in enrollment in that November-December timeframe, and we start to slide back down as the year progresses. Budget versus actual. We touched on this before, and you got a little bit into the volatility of the ALE enrollment from the report that was provided to you prior. So ALE is up or is down 100 and change for projection. However, that program, of course, is the most flexible when it comes to staffing, as we often add staff in increments of, so we staff at an initial level, and then we add staff based on growth in increments of about 0.5. And usually those are long-term subs. So as enrollment grows, we can add staffing. So in that way, the program is fairly flexible as you move the staffing levels up and down. Cash flow we talked about earlier. I always will focus on cash for you because cash is king. Everything else, I won't say manipulated, but whatever you have in the bank, it tells the most truth of your financial position at any given point in time. So that's why you'll see me continually to focus on your cash position. We know why cash is off by $2.5 to $3 million, as discussed earlier, and we expect those cash flow to moderate more towards projection in the next couple of months. So revenues are below projection, but also expenditures. So remember, you got to look at them in tandem. As you can see, month to month on our revenues, budget to actual. If you look down, like for November as a prime example, you see a 17 and change, an 18.3, and a 16.5. That's the volatility of your tax collections and LEA in part. Your tax collections of bulk come in October, but then they also swing and bleed into that month of November, depending upon how many weekends there are for tax collection and who pay their taxes. So that's what you're seeing in part in those months. But again, as our enrollment and our budget has shrank, you can see our actual revenue and actual expenditures are decreasing year over year. Same on the expenditure side. You can see the budgeted bar in black is what our budgeted, and the teal bar is the actual. So we have become below projection on the first 3 months of the fiscal year. I will say that we are monitoring closely. Our substitute costs continue to rise and grow. I was given an analysis from a payroll this morning that we're about 200,000 more this month than prior months in November. So to that end, substitutes and availability of substitutes and how much we spend for substitutes continues to be a large driver of our costs as we move forward. Something we're obviously monitoring. MSOCs, material supplies and operating costs, fairly volatile. As you know, they're a 15 to 70% of your budget, and the timeline for their expenditures can vary. Like there's a curriculum adoption at year end, you can have a big kick in your MSOCs, but for the most part, as you can see, our MSOC are below our budgeted expenditures, which is what we like to see this time of year. Another example that can swing that would be if we have a harsh winter, and part of our MSOCs are utility billing. So if we have day after day after day of cold weather, you can see spikes in our utility billing that will actually show up in your larger aggregate financial data. We'll let you know when that happens. And of course, are there any questions? All right. Thank you all. The governor released his budget today, had large tax increases in it in order to balance the deficit. We will see. He's required by law to release a budget in the month of December, and then we will patiently await our friends in the legislature to determine our financial fates.
I do have a quick question in regards, because you mentioned the increase in excuse me in sick or substitutes and so forth as related to sick leave, right? So I'm just wondering, do you believe or seen any research regarding whether or not it's related to COVID, like long COVID, change in the flu and cold season, and with all these different?
I'm going to say,
you know what I mean? Is it related to that, or is it?
Here's my professional opinion.
Okay, yes.
Not going to say it's anything else besides Jay
Yes.
Cooper, because I know Anthony wants to say something, but he's not going to right now, because I am. Post-COVID, district-wide, statewide, absenteeism still up. Employees have not come back to work at the same rates they've historically attended. PFMLA is another unfunded mandate from the state. So when people are out on paid family medical leave, well, who do you think needs to hire a substitute teacher for that paid family medical leave now? That was completely unfunded by the legislature, the state, by initiative. So we have PFMLA, and then we have, quite frankly, we have poor attendance post-COVID. You can see that data statewide. And I don't know how to remedy that. I have never seen sub-usage, when you look at around the state, as high as that level it is now. And I don't know what is driving that, Raymond, in part. So
I would concur with that. At the legislative breakfast today, that was brought up, and that is a theme across the state. So we had numerous districts who were talking about that. So there's a tremendous increase in absences post-COVID. So there's a different.
And then if you heard me say a few times, then I will have to let Anthony say something, because HR is his bailiwick. The funding for substitutes has remained static my whole career. It's been $150.86 per day, roughly $450 per funded teaching unit. It has not changed in 15, maybe 20 years. That number has stayed static, where we've all chased the sub rates higher and higher, a couple $100 a day, $250. In Yakima, we have what happens when the sub reaches 30 days, is it? 20, they then receive per diem rate based on where they're at. So we have some cost issues as well, but Anthony, go ahead if you want to talk about in part what you're seeing. Remember.
So I think overall we're seeing sick leave usage down. But what Jake had pointed out too, we're also seeing paid family medical leave, which is a protected leave, usage up. as well as the professional development also requires a substitute when we have PD going on. We take the individuals out of the classroom, and then we have to sub that as well. So by breaking them down into categories, we're able to get a better idea of where it is. But there, as Jake said, the legislature mandates a minimum of 10 sick leave days, but they only fund 3, and they fund it at a rate substantially below the going rate. So I don't know that we're ever going to be able to give you answers that you're specifically looking for, but I'd be more than happy to get into any kind of detail with anything that you'd like.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering what's driving the costs up, right? Because it seems to be a point that's brought up constantly at every report. So I just wanted to dig into that a little bit.
And we're not unique, Raymond. I mean,
yes, that's what I was
statewide
as
is
well.
a problem. If you looked at the gap on, I can pull it for you. The gap in state funding, statewide, all districts, and the substitute expenditure, it's massive. The gap is huge. They fund 0 classified subs. So every time we sub out a para, secretary, prof tech, no state funding, 0. All district. That's all local levy money. Every time you sub out a classified employee.
Thank you for explaining that. It helps a lot. Thanks.
The last thing, I know that Jake mentioned the budget dropping from the governor today. While he was speaking, I actually sent you a message with the link on the education budget summary from the governor. So that is waiting for you when you have time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Hope you feel better. And at this point, we'll be looking at item number 4, calendar updates, future agenda topics. Is there anything of note, Dr. Green?
As you can see on the calendar, we do have some items coming up in January. We do see the meeting at McClure Elementary School, which is on January 6th at 4 p.m. On the 13th, we have a school board retreat at Central Services, which bears some conversation here this evening, I would hope. You and I have not had the opportunity to speak as your new role now as board president, but we did have a conversation about the board retreat. And I'll loop back here in just a moment. I'll point out that on January 21st, we have a meeting at 7 p.m. at Central Services, and then February 3rd is our site visit to Hoover Elementary School at 4 p.m. So that takes us through the items there. The other thing that we probably should mention is the board retreat, which is after we come back in January. And right now the agenda is very slim.
We had the discussion and planning for the meeting. I thought we were going to have that on the agenda as a discussion item, but it didn't make it there. But here we are. We have no pressing requests for issues for an agenda for a retreat at this point. And we were having the conversation, well, why are we manufacturing things to do in a retreat? We're scheduled to have one, I believe, in March, a retreat, or in August.
It was March. I think we had one scheduled in March, which we talked about bypassing because we were going to have one in January. So here we have the January coming up. We can certainly meet for a full day like we've done before if we have a full agenda. There's nothing that says we have to meet for a full day retreat. It could be a partial day retreat, or we could decide to postpone that and maybe revive the one in March for a more robust agenda. But currently at this moment, the items that I have are really the curiosity or desire to have more conversation around professional learning communities is the only outstanding item that has really made it to the agenda. I have refrained from sending out kind of the request as to bring it here to the board because I know it would probably lead to some discussion about what you would want to do collectively at this point.
I wonder if Barb has a running list of those items, because I know we've discussed had some discussions that we tabled for the retreat, and there's probably at least 3 that I kind of vaguely remember, and I'm just wondering if we have a running list.
The 3 items we had on the list were the PLCs. We had the 1000 series and the 0 series, which were items that we had listed that were recorded at this point. Unless you have something different, Barb, which I don't think you do because she's saying no.
Can I ask the members of the board to please email Dr. Green within the next day or so if there's anything pressing they'd like to have added, and then Dr. Green, maybe we can
You and I can, okay,
discuss.
sounds great.
Is that all right? Excellent. Thank you very much. This takes us to comments from the public on agenda items. Do we have any speakers signed up tonight, Barb?
We do not.
Thank you very much. Then we will move to Section E, our consent agenda. The consent agenda this evening includes approvals of minutes, notification of approval of warrants for November 2024, approval of personnel actions, and the budget status reports from November, which are included in your consent agenda in board docs. Does any member wish to have any item of the consent agenda removed for discussion this evening?
No.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Barb, would you please call the roll?
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Barb. Section F is our approvals. The first one this evening is approval for Dr. Green to travel for the Heads and Principals Association Annual Conference. And to address that, I'll ask you, Dr. Green, to please elaborate.
Yes, thank you. This is very important to share because, of course, when we're in times of budget constraints, we want to be very aware of what is going on out there as far as travel. And as an entity, we have made sure to scrutinize every request that has gone forward, and I expect nothing less from the board. I am not one who likes to travel, and yet I recognize that in this role, there are important opportunities that are out there that can bring things to the district, and this is one of those. So there has not been out-of-state travel by me in just about a year. The Heads and Principals Association Conference is in the amount of $2,849.92. It does take place in Durham, North Carolina, which is not a vacationing mecca, I would point out. But what it does provide is the opportunity to join with the Heads and Principals Association, of which I was inducted into. And it is made up of boarding school, private school leaders of about 80%, and also then public school administrators and superintendents to the tune of about 20%. The reason that this is so important is because of the opportunity to cross-pollinate with leaders across both organizations, to engage with renowned thought leaders, foster peer collaboration and performance, certainly address contemporary challenges, which does take place over those several days, and enrich district-wide professional opportunities that come through the organization. I would also call out that at a time where we are looking at a presidential change and what that could mean, it is important to be on the East Coast and understand a little bit more on what's happening on that side of the country and how it impacts certainly the private sector, but then also potentially resonating through the public education system as well. The event aligns with our commitment to leadership, excellence, equity, and collaboration. And by approving my attendance, you are investing in opportunities to strengthen our district's initiatives, from advocating for equitable funding to enhancing safety measures and promoting innovation in education. I am not scheduled to take any other out-of-state opportunity this school year, nor have I taken one previously during the school year. So I'd just call that out, that this is a well-conceived and thought-out request.
The board is being asked to approve travel for Superintendent Green to the Heads and Principals Association Annual Conference in Durham, North Carolina from February 4th through 7th in the amount of $2,565.28. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Barb, would you please call the roll?
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Approvals number 2 will be the approval of the 2024-25 school improvement plans.
We'll go ahead and take that. It is listed for Stacy Locke, and no matter how many times I promise to myself I'm going to get better about notifying you of people who are not here in the meeting and why, I continually forget to take those opportunities until it comes to a moment like this. So we do have Stacy Locke excused from our meeting today. She is ill, and I specifically requested that she stay away. We're sorry that she's not here, but this was her item. The requested action is that the Board of Directors approves the 2024-25 school improvement plans as submitted. I do want to call out that when you spoke about partnerships, Director or President Beckett, that is an opportunity for all of our principals to make sure is in the plan, because I can tell you that each of our buildings does have an opportunity and does have partners. We know that through our faith-based partnership that there's at least one, if not multiple, just in that area. So I just wanted to dovetail that onto this requested action. But back to the requested action, the Board of Directors approves the 24-25 school improvement plans as submitted. It does tie into goals 3 and 5 of our strategic plan, which is equitable opportunity to achieve core mastery, critical thinking, as well as participants through graduation and beyond. You've heard the background information through Maria Lucero. So the requested action then is to approve this requested action.
I move that we approve the 24-25 school improvement plans.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do. Well, I excuse me. I will vote in favor of approval for these plans. However, I did notice, and I know this is an issue that is currently being discussed at the state level, and some parties in terms of the effectiveness of critical race theory and being taught in public schools. And it seems from, it seems from reviewing some of the plans, there is a little bit of that critical race theory. And so I just wanted to bring that out, that may not be the most effective way of our philosophy or approach to teaching kids to be successful in our diverse community. So I just wanted to bring that out and to let the board know that I will support approval of the plans, but I do have some concerns in regards to being based, some of the plans or some of the activities, curriculum being based on critical race theory. Thank you.
Walker, you have some.
Well, I read through, I didn't read the details in the data, but I read through all of the plans' goals. There's one box where you can read just their goals and their plans. I saw no mention of critical race theory, so I'm not sure where that's coming from.
Again, I'd rather not go in and identify a school. I'd rather not do that discussion. I'm not even getting into debate, it's just my thoughts. Their critical race theory doesn't have to be actually spelled out to know that it's critical race theory. There's some approaches, some curriculum that is based on critical race theory. And I'm not going to call out any curriculum or any schools or any principals that are using that approach in their plans. I'd rather not do that, and we can have a discussion at a later time if you like, and I can show you where I believe there is influence or there's critical race theory being woven into some of the activities.
We have a motion on the table. Barb, would you please call the roll?
Director Navarro Jr.,
Aye.
Director Walker,
Aye.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Beckett.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Section 3 is our second opportunity from comments for the public on other items, non-agenda items. Barb, do we have any speakers signed up this evening?
There are no commenters.
Seeing none, we'll move on to Section G for policy governance. The first item is the first reading of the 1400 series, board meetings, order of business, and quorum. there any comments to be made? Am I understanding this correctly that Martha, this is the policy that you had the opportunity to redline?
Yes, this was, I worked with our attorney on suggestions to present in this policy. They're just essentially, they're not very major edits. It's just minor edits. This is based on rough discussions that the board has had over the past year. And so I volunteered to make those edits, and this is the first reading. So we'll have probably at our next board meeting, we'll have an opportunity for second reading. So if the board has any suggestions or questions about the edits that were done in this policy, you can get a hold of me and we can talk about that. Or you can talk with staff if you have other questions about it. And then we will have an opportunity for second reading at our next board meeting, at which time we'll have probably the ability to approve that, and that would be the new 1400 policy.
Thank you, Director Rice. I noted that we have both the red line copy and the original in our board docs packet, so hopefully everybody will have a chance to review those before our next meeting, and we will take that up at that point in time. The next item under policy governance, we have the survey monkeys that have been attached to our board docs for policies 1000.3.4 all the way through 3.7. Did anybody have any desire to discuss any of those further or in depth tonight? Do we need a motion to receive? We do not.
Ryan?
Yes, Director Rice.
I'm working on a very small screen here, so I may not be able to see everything that I've had a chance to review, but I'm not sure that I can see the SurveyMonkey results on these, because I don't believe that we've had an opportunity to discuss them in order to generate the SurveyMonkey.
I believe this is the first reading.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So we will begin with 3.4, which is the president's role, which I will undoubtedly be studying in closer detail than I have done before this evening. 1000.3.4 is attached. And it identifies the role not only of the president, but also identifies duties of the vice president. 1000.3.5 is attached, which is our board members' code of conduct, which itemizes our code of conduct and disciplinary procedures should those be necessary. .6 is our board committee principles. Which identifies 9 different bullet points that our board will adhere to. And 3.7 is our board committee structure, which identifies the opportunity for board committees should the need arise. And as I understand it, we don't currently have any board committees in place. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Does any board member have any questions about any of those particular policies before we review so that we can conduct the SurveyMonkey?
No.
Okay, then Barb will, looks like, send those tomorrow. Thank you very much. Do we have a need for executive session this evening? We do not have a need for executive session. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening, I would like to take a brief moment to say thank you to Norm Walker for serving as our board president over the last year. We appreciate your service and your leadership, and we look forward to continuing the conversations about public education in Yakima with you in our new roles. Congratulations to everyone for their new position, if positions changed this evening. Our next board meeting, according to my calendar, is 4 p.m. on Monday, January 6th. We'll be at McClure Elementary. And with nothing else on our agenda, I'll wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and thank you for attending tonight on a cold winter evening. Drive safe.
John.